Well, welcome everybody to our online program on addiction and recovery from the Sunshine Coast Health Centre up here in Powell River, BC. And this time we're going to talk about another of our findings from our big research project that we just completed. And this is an interesting one. We're trying to, when we analyzed all the data, came to the conclusion that the basis for the participants' addiction seemed to come from this idea that they weren't living a life that was fulfilling to them. Whatever they were doing in their life, whether they were successful or not, there was just something about their lives that something was missing. They described it as an emptiness or a void. And of course, this reminds us of the great Viktor Frankl and how he defined an addiction as, his exact thing was, alcoholism is not understandable unless we recognize the existential vacuum underlying it. And what he meant by this big fancy word, existential vacuum, is basically this idea of the life I'm living, just there's an emptiness to it. There's just something missing. One client I worked with years ago described it to me as, it's like I'm a kid looking at it through a candy shop window, but I can't get in, and I'm hoping somebody will let me in. Right? There's just something there, and sometimes people don't even know what it is. Another client I work with, he described it beautifully as, it's a feeling that I get when I've locked the key, locked my door, and I'm getting in my car and I'm off to work, and I just have this feeling something's missing. I've forgotten something, or haven't addressed something, or something like that. So something missing in their lives, right? So this was quite interesting. And by the way, this research project was to just talk to the participants, not give them any ideas or anything, just allow them to talk and see what they came up with. So they came up with this idea that somehow something was missing in their lives, right? And of course, I mean, it's a very detailed and complex idea, there's something missing in your life, but we'll just touch on a few of these things. And one of the big ones is, every one of the participants said he felt a lack of belonging in the world. So this is kind of interesting, right? For some of them, they never had this sense of belonging. Some of them felt, for example, they were different. Maybe in one case, a fellow was diagnosed at the age of 5 years old with ADHD, and as soon as he got that diagnosis, he began to think about, geez, I'm not like other people. I'm different. I'm separate. There's a problem with me, or I'm defective, or I'm deficient, right? I'm not like other people. And if you have that feeling, right, that's pretty tough to be able to fit in the world, to find a sense of belonging in the world. Other people, because of any number of reasons, felt like they were sort of sitting on the sidelines of life. They really were not very impressed with everyday society and chose to sit on the sideline. But again, another example of someone who's having a tough time finding a sense of belonging. Some of the fellows, they said they once had a feeling of belonging, but then lost it. So for example, maybe they worked at a job, which, boy, they just loved to go there every day, and you know, the paycheck, well, that was just gravy, because they just loved the work, and all of a sudden the job ended, and they never got that feeling in any of their other jobs. Or maybe for fathers and husbands, you know, maybe they felt a deep sense of belonging in the family, you know, watching the kids grow up and everything, but then the kids move out, and maybe something happens to their partner, right? And so they've lost that. And again, how do you find a sense of belonging in the world? And then they talked about, how do you fill up this emptiness, this void, right? And they talked about using drugs as a way to self-medicate this feeling that somehow I don't belong. And all this, of course, reminds us of the great Nobel Prize-winning alcoholic playwright Eugene ONeill, who very clearly stated that his problem was that he said, I will always be a stranger who will never fit in, who can never belong. And so this idea of not belonging, this makes it really tough to live comfortably in the world, to feel like you're part of, to live this fulfilling life. And it's interesting that our research participants, from all the data they gave us, they too sort of confirm this idea that either they had lived a life where they really felt no sense of belonging, or they had lost it somewhere along the way. At any rate, these are interesting. And so we'll be back next time with another of the results from our research based on this idea of the using drugs to fill up a vacuum.